Okay, thank you very much. Good evening. I know it's been a long time that we stay here, but I would try to make it quite, vibrant. Thank you very much. I'm from Ethiopia. First of all, I would like to appreciate the Qatar International Festival organizers, and also I would like to appreciate the Qatar people for their warm host. Thank you very much. I'm going to present you about appropriating indigenous art in Ethiopia and I would share you how I manipulate that practice into the contemporary space. The art world these days divide the art into, a modern, a traditional, but, modernity is an extension of tradition. So I started to do research on some things which is considered as craft in it, which has its own fine art quality. You see the artwork in the background is a cow's skin. In the country, in my country, Ethiopia, animals are like everything. People consider their wealth by the number of the cattle they have. So I'm going to quickly present you some about Ethiopia, relationship between animal and local people and objects as a means of self-expression, and my artistic experiment and findings on indigenous art. Don't worry, I would make it very short. Ethiopia is an eastern country. It's believed that Ethiopia is the origin of mankind because of the finding of Lucy, which aged between 3.2 million years old, a complete fossil. Yeah, this is Ethiopia. We are not far from Qatar. Okay, so these are some of the ancient obelisks, which is like 79 feet from one stone. Okay, when you come to my point, my people, my local people, the place where I grew, have special relationship with animals. We can see that here, they're so attached. So I was, researching how this relationship going on. Interestingly, this culture is also similar here in Qatar. That was really interesting for me. So the local people define themselves with objects, and they took some objects to define themselves. The objects are not mere simply objects for them. They believe that their identity, their labor embodied on objects. So even though it's outdated or out of use, they prefer to keep it because they assume that there is strong relationship, connection, and they want that trigger their memory with that object. So whenever we move to another place to live, it's always a huge maze because we want to take everything, because every object has its own importance. So this is the local people. Whenever they love its animal, they prefer to keep its skin and to see each time to remember its kindness and to value each day to make them alive. So at the daytime, it's aesthetical object, and at the nighttime, they slept on it. So I was so interested with this practice because it's a special thing that the people are not doing to display it in a museum. They display it in their house. Nobody cares, but just do it for their own personal consumption. So whenever someone gets that room, he experienced that, and he knew that this animal is very, very important in his life. And they don't even eat its meat. They prefer to keep it. And the local people, they give some money for the person who lost that animal, and he replaced another animal, thinking that love and affection would continue with the animal which is going to be bought next. So this indigenous practice were very critical for me. That was the one which I found out in my birthplace, but here in Harar, Ethiopia, I know it's objects, but just each object has its story, with their grandpa, with their aunt, with their relative, with their neighbor, and just they put it to remind those memories. So if something reminds story, and if it's aesthetically pleasant, what's the problem to call this art? So I am trying to, challenging the very westernized perspective of art. So we have to discuss on this issue. Interestingly, I saw this here in Qatar too. So these are not simply objects. There is love and passion invested on these things. So if we manage to bring the so-called craft into the contemporary space and manage it in such a way that it creates some meaning, I'm telling you, it would be an amazing art. Yeah, so this was my birthplace. My people were living here. So that one named Trballing, that's an animal which give birds like 20, 25, and they consider this cow as special in their life, so they keep it to remind those beautiful stories. This is me in the middle of that. So I used to do different arts, but I started to study something which is very investigative and which has layers of ideas. This is from Wollo. So you can see the drawing in the background. They don't tend to show that they are master in their drawing, but just they did it for their personal joy, for their self-expression. So every object is assumed as a medium to define themselves. Yeah, this is a how the local people live. So this guy is a famous, known guy in a village, and recognized as a very important guy because he was a hunter, and those time a brave hunter who managed to kill a lion or something assumed to be hero. So when you enter his house, everybody knew that he's a hero before he explained anything. So I love that expression. It's powerful that someone define himself without telling anything. So after that, after I do research on that, you can't make an art out of direct research. You have to distill, you have to think how to change this story into an art form. So I started to search a materiality which can define my relationship with my story, with my environment, and with, with cosmos. So I found it a very interesting material, which is animal hide. There is dynamics, there is color, and I want to honor them. Whenever people get died, you would put a monument to remind. But just animals give everything of their life, but no one considers once they get died. So I really want to honor and bring into the contemporary space. So this is Lamma Guya, a famous Ethiopian artist who do some paintings on cow's hide. He carves some parts of the skin and do paintings. So I used to do something like that, but later on I found out that itself, the cow's hide, that's a creator's painting, is beautiful. So I started to capture the dynamism in that. So, these are not simply random cow skin. I collected some special cow skin from the local people with their stories. And I told them that I don't waste your skin. I want to, bring it into the international circle and honor your animal. So they were so resistant because everybody wants to see it each day. But luckily, I managed to negotiate and bring those practices into the contemporary space. I started doing some work. This is one of my work. And those are Amharic letters saying some beautiful appreciation about their animal, their word, about those specific animals. Okay. So I started to investigate that materiality and merge with my earlier paintings. I used to somewhat a very surrealistic, abstract, and other artworks. So I try to merge these things and see the effect. So these are the works which is displayed in here at Qatar International Festival 2019. So I bring this painting, the first painting, to show you that this was my first trial, and I come up with this ideas. You can see that each piece has its own story. There is story of each skin, and here is an experiment. So the dynamics in it is amazing. I mean, how could I carve the skin and paint a portrait of my friend or someone? It's just God's painting, Allah's painting, completed without me. So my value would be my framing and, being able to claim that this could be an art. So these are some of my earlier paintings. I usually interested in complementary ideas and subjects. I love two complementing ideas: modernity, tradition, and also, civilized barbarian. We claim that we are very modern, sophisticated community, but because we have a technology, and sometimes the technology is supposed to simplify life, but sometimes it worsens, right? So I want the people to consider other experience of the people, the public, other than their life. So I try to bring the modern characters with the traditional and manage to come up with these things. Thank you very much. This is all about my art. Thank you very much.